Hello there, my name's Wayne. I live in the south of Croydon. This is my allotment, and it's my great pleasure to be taking part with the John Whitgift Foundation in their 425th anniversary campaign called Growing with John. Hopefully you can join me on and off through the year as we turn this little plot into a productive vegetable patch. I'll be growing all sorts of things. I'm a long way behind at the moment, and I need to crack on with fertilising and digging this side of the allotment, and in a couple of weeks' time we'll be planting potatoes, but more about that later. Anyway, as I say, it's my great pleasure to be involved with this anniversary campaign. So if you like growing vegetables, or you're just interested, or you're just looking for something outside of your own four walls, keep tuned and enjoy what we produce. It won't just be me, there'll be other people too. Okay, so I'll quickly show you what I'm doing today, or what I need to do. Okay, this area here, where the grass is, through to where the spade is, that was, up until recently, full of raspberry plants. You can see one that I've missed here. I still need to dig this one out. Anyway, from this end, we need to dig and just turn this ground over and put some horse manure to fertilise the plot, and we can grow some pumpkins or something. I haven't quite decided yet, but there'll be pumpkins, or maybe some sweet corn at that end, and yes, so at the moment there's not a great lot to see. I'll quickly show you a picture of what this area looked like 2 weeks ago. Even the broad beans seem to have suffered. I wonder if they'll come back. And you can see that it's remarkably bounced back, which is fantastic. This little green patch here is just poppies. Pretty flower, but a weed, I'm afraid. It needs to be turned into the ground. This area with this dead stuff was my green manure cover crop, a plant called Felicia, and I can't pronounce the rest of it at the moment off the top of my head, the Latin name. Anyway, you don't need to worry too much about that. Yeah, so last year I grew sweet corn at the bottom end here, and it's not a good idea to plant the same thing in the ground twice. So we'll move the sweet corn up, perhaps this end from here onwards, once we've dug it over and cultivated it. So let me crack on with that, and you can see how that works out for me. And one reason I need to dig this over is because it's full of weeds. Where the raspberries were growing, there's lots of bindweed, which have roots like this, big thick ones. I'll show you up closer in a moment. And lots of cooch grass, which has these roots. If you dig this over with a spade, you're going to end up slicing up all these roots. So what you're going to see me do, you don't want to do that, because if you leave it in the ground, it's going to sprout back. You only need like an inch, a couple of centimetres of this, and it will grow back and give you another problem. Same with this, tiny little fragment of this, and it's a problem for you. So we're going to use a fork and try and prise out all the roots we can find, put them in a bucket, and let them die off naturally. Okay, this is Cooch Grass, and it has these rhizomes that go just below the soil and go up to 1 metre, sort of 3 feet along the bottom of the soil, and they push up and they push along, and they make these tufts of grass you see around along the fence line, for example, like this one here. This is Cooch Grass, this tuft of grass, and that's come from a root like this. Now then, as I said before, if you leave any of this in the ground, even the smallest little piece, from that node onwards, that will just grow and take off and become a problem for you. So you don't want that in your allotment or your garden if you're growing vegetables, really, because it uses up nutrients that you'd much sooner were used on your vegetables. And these are the roots of bindweed. Bellbind, all sorts of names. It's got common names. You don't need to really get into the Latin and it's recently changed genus, but we don't need to worry about that too much. Long and short of it, it's a climber. It has these great big thick roots that go through the ground, and they have like heart-shaped leaves come up. They're all dead at the moment, they're dark in the winter above ground, but they have these sort of heart-shaped leaves come up, and they're very pretty, really big. Well, this is greater bindweed, has great big white flowers on. They're actually quite pretty, but they obviously, the seeds go into your ground and it just becomes a massive problem. And that's where these raspberries were grown. They've just colonized the whole ground, and it's full of this stuff. So I need to get out as much of this as I can. And like I said, if I use a spade, I'm going to end up breaking these roots, and then they'll grow back. So if you break them like this, they'll just grow back. So you don't really want to be using a spade. You'll end up chopping them up, giving yourself more trouble than it's worth. This bit's going to be the worst bit, because it hasn't been cultivated and turned over for years. Break up any big lumps. This is the hardest part of gardening, I think, digging. Various no dig methods where you cover it with compost, but I really don't think you're going to get rid of bindweed and Cooch grass doing that necessarily. Maybe you can, but this is how I do it. Get everything out that's not planted. It's still pretty much virgin soil, really, so I know I didn't really. This is a raspberry root. I don't want raspberries here anymore. Look at this combination of both there. You won't get all of it out, but just get as much as you can. And eventually you'll get on top of it. Just work back and before you know it, we'll be at the bottom of the plot. It's a dandelion, you don't want that one either. Cooch grass, sprouting. Mr. Worm is our friend. Bindweed is not. We've had to wait a long time for the rain to ease off and the soil to dry out a little bit. Look at it all, there's tons in here. It's all got to come out, we've got to find it as much as we can. Okay, so that gives you an idea of what you need to do to prepare a bed. You need to dig it over and get rid of any roots you find that you didn't plant. If it's a brand new plot, then you know you didn't plant it. So I'm going to carry on with this, and perhaps in a couple of days' time I'll be down to where the broad beans are. You can come back and join me and watch me to spread some manure around, some horse manure. Anyway, for the time being, I think you've seen enough of me digging and putting up bits of root. So thanks for joining me, and I'll see you later on in the year when we start properly growing some stuff. Potatoes next. Look forward to seeing you then. Bye bye.